Hello and welcome back to The Diplomats, brought to you by diplomacybriefing.com. We are eagerly anticipating the moves of fall 1902 in the Nexus Season 7 finals. We're going to have a quick sneak peek now. You ready then, Eric?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Have a what we see.
I love winning money. I love it. Good job, Turkey. Good job, Russia.
But also, Italy has taken Greece, so it's just everyone piling on Austria now.
Oh.
Russia doesn't take Berlin,
and Austria doesn't take Munich
because oh my God! Right, okay. So Karthik, who was really eyeing himself up in the mirror or whatever in that Lady Razor cartoon, is had a bit of a fall from grace here.
Russia,
not getting Munich, not getting Bulgaria, losing Greece. I did not see this coming. Jim, how would Ed manage to go up one?
Ed's +1, building 2.
Will he build 2? Will he build 2?
He doesn't have a pop. He's +1 for Eddie, and he had 1 in his pocket. He's building 2.
That is amazing. That is amazing. But and Russia does go up 1 because he gets Sweden.
He gets Sweden.
And
this makes sense.
Jordan goes into North Sea from the Channel, and look at that. Ewok sneaks in. Doesn't convoy to Portugal though. Takes that with the fleet because he goes into Burgundy. Wow.
Russia's moves make sense here. He made what I think is the smart decision of I need to rebuild this RT, get Turkey out of Armenia. Okay. All right. If he's going to do that, if he can take Sweden from England instead of taking Berlin from Germany, because he can't sit there in Berlin next to what he assumes is an angry Austria who makes it into Munich because no, this makes sense. It's because
also, if you annihilate Germany, then France is the main beneficiary, and that could be your.
Let's not forget. He just got Sweden. Now he's got to build. He might want to build in Warsaw because he just started a war with Austria, but he's got the option now of putting a fleet in North Coast, turning around, taking Norway.
Ed is alive and kicking. Oh gosh.
Well,
and still that army in Piedmont is just being just a nuisance to it's not really doing anything. It's just annoying.
Yeah, it's and now he did drop it down to Apulia, so now he's looking at a convoy. But I mean, what's he gonna do? I guess he can convoy to Albania. He's gonna build an army in Venice and convoy to Albania, I think is what he's gonna do now.
Yeah, because you do want an army in Venice. If you're going in on Austria, you do need to be in Venice and put. Wow, this is interesting.
But if they're going to do this right, what Russia and Turkey have got to do now, this won't post until after fall, correct?
Until the builds come through.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I don't know. Well, he might wait until after spring potentially, but yeah. So this is obviously
we're not going to do a
sneak
show.
Peek.
This is going to be part of the fall winter 1902 show that posts after spring 03.
Yeah.
So I'm at liberty to say if Russia and Turkey are going to do this right now, moving forward, I think Russia builds in Warsaw to add to the war against Ukraine, to add to the war against Austria.
Yeah, because you want to be in Galicia, right?
Moscow, Warsaw to Galicia, or support Silesia to Galicia, or one of the two. Moscow could slide up north to take Norway, but they've got to do this little job. They got to do Sev the Rum rum to Sev, black convoy Sev to rum. Because that fleet and rum is worthless for a war.
Yeah, you need that swapping round, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. So you'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
this is this is going to be fun.
I told you Austria was in good shape. I told you Austria was in good shape until 1905. Remember?
This is a really interesting game, really changeable. No one's having just a straight path. Everyone's this is like a roller coaster already, and it's not even completed 1902 yet.
Yeah. Now Jordan's going to have to do a disband. And he's going to retreat Sweden to, I would assume, Norway. He's going to have to do a disband. Greg made it into English. So if Jordan disbands that army, Greg will be taking Liverpool next year.
Yeah, maybe London has to go.
Yeah, North Sea can cover London and Yorkshire. The problem is well, here's an advantage for Jordan. Ed can't hold Eddie next year. He can't hold it. So Yorkshire can support north to Eddie. That way, even if Eddie retreats to Clyde, then York is covering Liverpool. And to do that, he's got to disband either Norway or London. Jordan's done.
Far from ideal, but that's where we are. Anything else that immediately jumps out before we?
I don't remember if I thought in my head to say that, hey, maybe Italy, Turkey, and Russia will all jump out of Austria, but the thought did occur to me.
I mean, this is good, play from John as well to bounce back from what looked like an awkward position.
They're playing this game very French. Stop the leader, stop the leader, stop the leader. But yeah, Russia is now at 6. Russia, other than Ed, who's now at 7, Russia is in a beautiful position.
I gotta say, I didn't expect Ed to be at 7 after this turn.
Turning Russia was amazing. Ed did an amazing diplomatic job. And if he hadn't looked so bad and things hadn't looked so desperate, I don't think he would have been able to convince Russia to leave him alone. I think what happened here is Russia made what I believe is a correct calculation that he needed to get Turkey out of Armenia and help him get Bulgaria back to hold off an AI. And Russia made the decision, well, if I'm going to do that, then I'm jumping out of this Austria-Russia thing, because I won't be able to hold Berlin if I betray Austria here. So everyone's playing very French. Stop the leader. And no, I think this is a smart play all the way around. I think, let's see, who here didn't do the right thing? Who here deserves Eric's scorn?
Anyone does this turn. I mean,
anything.
Italy. You can say Austria, is getting beaten up, but that was more moving the second army last turn, I guess, instead of
Italy maybe should have moved to Tyrolia on the off chance that Austria made it into Munich.
Yeah.
Continuing to antagonize France with no opportunity to do anything about it doesn't make any sense to me at all. I mean, not only did he send Piedmont to Marseille knowing he wasn't going to make it, he sent Tyrrhenian Sea to Ionian.
Yeah, but I suppose you also don't want Marseille to walk into Piedmont.
Well, yeah, but he could have accomplished that by just holding.
That's true.
A little bit of virtue signal, So England did take North Sea from the Channel. I believe that's the right move. If he hadn't done that, he'd have been open to a convoy to Eddie, and then he would have been truly and surely dead. I think he did
it's
that
interesting
right.
that Ed didn't try a convoy, but there we go.
So we were both wrong about Sweden. We were both wrong about Berlin. We were both wrong about Munich.
Is there any point of us doing these videos just wrong?
Well, I just want a judge's ruling here. I just got a judge's ruling. Who had a better map? Who predicted things better? Me or Stitches?
Oh.
I think Stitches got everything wrong except for Ionian into Greece. I think I got a lot more right than he did.
Who had Ionian to Greece?
He did.
He did. Okay, yeah.
I had Ionian to East, Tyrrhenian to Ionian.
You had Mao picking up Portugal, and you had the Channel going to North. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, no one had Ed going up one. But right, we're starting to wander into full commentary mode here, so we might want to wrap this up. Have you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I just came up with the judge's ruling for you. I asked for it, you waffled. I'm going to go ahead and do it. In the bet between me and Stitches, the winner was Go Horns Go.
Absolutely.
Talk to you later.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Diplomats and our ongoing coverage of the Nexus Season 7 Finals game. We are joined today by another special guest. We have Riaz Virani. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. And for those of you who haven't come across you before, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a real estate developer from Vancouver, Canada. I've been playing the game for a good period of time. Took a break with having babies, and now I'm back into the game again. And I was a finalist last year for the S6 finals at Nexus.
And you were actually the tournament director for the first half of this tournament. If
you got it, you got it. Yeah. Then when it was time to play, I mean, it just obviously you can't be a tournament director and at the same time play. Right?
Handed the reins over to Kudasov at that point. Well, hopefully you
very capable hands.
Are well positioned then to give us some insight, because so far Eric and I have been sort of waffling our way through, or at least I have. Eric's been sort of showing me the ropes and teaching me how to read a board, or at least that I can't yet. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm feeling much better after I got last season's predictions pretty close to good. I'm not feeling as good looking forward to this season. This is a very chaotic board. This is very high level play, very dynamic play. These are very adaptive players, and they're rolling with the punches. It's a fun game to watch. But for me as a commentator, this is going to be a rough season for me to call, because there's a lot of options on the table.
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more.
This episode, once again, is brought to you by diplomacybriefing.com. And in this episode, we are looking at fall and winter in 1902. Lex and I had a quick peek at this just after the moves went through. And wow, it was certainly a lot going on here. Well, Riaz first, what jumps out at you here? What are the headlines?
Oh, the center of the board. Really? I mean, you look at the center of the board. You look at what happened around Munich and the fantastic diplomacy that Ed played in and around Munich to be able to keep it safe, to be able to get Russia to turn on Austria. It's a fantastic play between we're talking about having Spencer choose a side between two excellent diplomats, between Ed and Karthik, and I'm honestly very surprised to see Ed win that battle.
Buzz and I had some debate about this offline when we were kind of preparing. He tends to lean in the direction of thinking that Ed drove this decision tree. I'm not sure how much of this was Ed making it happen and how much of this was Ed being the beneficiary of good fortune. Spencer made a comment in the Discord. Why is everyone giving Ed credit for this? How come no one's giving Russia credit for this? And well, the reason is because everyone was looking at Ed. No one was looking at you. But good news for you, Spencer. People are looking at you now. Now, Riaz thinks that Ed was more behind the diplomacy here that drove the decision for Russia and Germany to cooperate last season. I think it may have been Russia who drove it. And the reason I think it was Russia who drove it is it's more about the eastern side of the board than it is the center of the board. What went on in the center of the board was most interesting. But what drove Russia's decision-making is he had to figure out what was going on with Austria and Italy. Because if Austria and Italy were allied and Russia sat back and let Turkey get crippled without breaking up that Austria-Italy alliance, Russia was just the next course of the meal. So with Russia making what I believe was a smart decision, it's also the decision I predicted, convoying Armenia back to Bulgaria. With him making the decision that he had to get aggressive against Carthage, he had to make a decision about what to do in Germany, because if he had gone through with Silesia to Berlin, Baltic support Silesia to Berlin, and then had antagonized Austria over what was going on in Bulgaria, Russia would have just been facing Germany and Austria. So I think that Ed's decision here was made for him by Russia, because Russia came to him and said, hey, I got to do something in the East. I don't want to be fighting Austria and Germany. How can you and I get along? And they came up with this plan that got that Russian fleet out of Baltic Sea, put it into Sweden, helped Ed keep Carthage out of Munich, because if you're gonna kick him back out of Bulgaria, the last thing you want is Austria getting a build. And I do think it's interesting, the retreat to Albania. I'm not sure I would have done a retreat to Albania as Carthage. If he had retreated that fleet off the board, he could have dropped an army. And you kind of wonder why he would do that and what was the motivation. And you kind of got to wonder whether or not Austria knew he was giving Greece up to Italy. Austria clearly thought he was keeping Bulgaria, getting Munich, so he knew he was getting two builds. I think that the agreement might have been inside baseball that Carthage said, go ahead and take Greece. And
well, yeah, I'm inclined to agree that maybe I was surprised to see that
that would have made retreating off the board and dropping an army make more sense. Keeping the fleet makes him look more angry at Italy. So I'll be interested at the end of the game to know whether or not Italy was taking Greece with Austria's permission or not.
Because, well, okay. I mean, I think this just shows that we're going to have, there's a lot of sort of knock-on effects on a diplomacy board, but let's attempt to sort of go around one country by one.
Okay. All right, let's do it like that.
Let's start with Turkey. And Riaz might not agree with this, but if you're saying, Eric, that Germany was a beneficiary of Russia's sort of new game plan, anti-Austrian game plan in the north, then if that's the case, then Turkey is the beneficiary in the south.
Well, Turkey is definitely a beneficiary in this dynamic. Now, who came up with what? We don't know. We don't have that. We don't have that side. We're trying to read tea leaves here. I guess it's more like reading the bones than reading the tea leaves. But this was the only move set that kept Turkey viable. This was the only move set that kept Turkey viable. As soon as this option came on the table and got some reception from Russia, Turkey's decision got made for him. He didn't have any choice. This was the only move set available to him. So the second best move set would have involved putting IG in Bulgaria's south coast. And that's just not as good as this. So I really think this was the only move set that Turkey had in front of him that kept him a going concern in the game.
You seem to be nodding away at that, Riaz.
I agree, but I actually think the primary beneficiary of this is actually Italy, because if Eric's correct and Italy here has consent on Greece, that means they got to the 5 that they really needed. They haven't really made much of an enemy other than whatever they're doing with France. And at the same time, Turkey's in just as weak a position as they were before, because you can snatch the Aegean, they're not getting a build. There's only one fleet in the Eastern Med area, and Aegean can be taken, like right away. I mean, they could take it back right away, and Bulgaria can just as easily be snatched next year as it was this.
Yeah, if you're Turkey here and you're helping Ionian, you're helping Italy into Greece from Ionian, you'd probably say, well, okay, I'm happy to do that, but I don't want to see Turanian move into Ionian in its stead.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Turkey knew that Turanian to Ionian was coming. I think in that position, with that board dynamic, hoping that Italy would leave Ionian Sea vacant, that's a whole lot of hope. And you can hope in one hand and crap in the other and see which one fills up first. I guarantee you. Hope ain't going to deliver, okay? Because not moving to Ionian, not only does it give up strategic advantage to a player who's a beggar, because Turkey's definitely a beggar here. But by not moving into Ionian and staying in Turanian, he also would have antagonized France. Because France would go, what the heck are you not moving to Ionian for? And if you're Italy and you're not moving to Ionian, there's only one reason that you're not moving to Ionian. So there was zero chance that Italy was not going to move into Ionian. So you end up with this position that I call, and I've never heard it called this. I'm not stealing this from some dip strategy article or anywhere, but I call Turkey's position the Iron Cross. When you got a fleet in Black Sea and a fleet in Aegean and an army in Bulgaria, and you can either have an army or a fleet in Khan, you're in even worse shape if it is a fleet. But when you've got those 4 units in that diamond, I call it an Iron Cross, and it's a very fitting name because you're just kind of hanging there, So
where that begs the question then: where does Turkey go from here? If you're John Anderson, what are you looking at? It looks that Italy can do more damage to you than Russia can. You're in Black Sea. You've had active support from Russia. Do you sort of try and push into the Balkans then?
Oh, you have to push into the Balkans. You have to.
How though? Like, how do you do that, Eric? Because there's a fleet in Romania. Like, how do you get into Serbia?
Well, and you'll see it in my predictions, but I'll talk you through it right now. Sure. You want to assume that Turkey and Russia are going to stay allied. They just made very bold moves. They just pushed Italy, Austria back a little bit. A fleet in Romania is absolutely worthless against Austria. And the most effective thing that Russia can do here is this is what we'll talk about that in a second. We're still talking about Turkey. Turkey's moves do involve Russia here, and we'll see this in our predictions. I didn't make a separate slide for this, but Russia and Turkey in this situation can do a very clever thing. They can order Romania to Sev to Rum, right? And when you order 2 units against each other, they bounce. Not when you got a fleet in Black Sea to do the convoy. You do fleet Rum to Sev, army Sev to Rum, fleet Black convoy Sev to Rum. Now you've got 2 armies on the line. You've also got the ability to force another army into Galicia. I think Russia and Turkey are going to stay allied. I think they're going to push the front. I think Carthage is in a lot of trouble. And I think Krill needs to start working real hard to try and build an IT, because the IA isn't going to last very long. And if he doesn't create a wintergreen and Russia lasts long enough to help Turkey get out of the corner, whether or not Turkey ever damages Italy, he's going to slow Italy down enough. He's never going to have a chance to compete for the lead in this game that ends in 1910.
How do you feel about that, Riaz?
I can see that. I know Matt Krill as a player, and I know that I have a pretty strong feeling that he would not turn on Austria right here. I think his focus is going to be on Turkey, and for me the key when you're like when you're playing newer players, I find that they try to follow a certain meta, but when you're playing veteran established players, they tend to say, I don't really care about a meta. I care about what's best for me, right? And if I was Austria, I might look seriously at Turkey as as a a good option here, especially knowing how good a player Karthik is. I mean, I could easily see him saying, okay, well, you know what, let's get rid of Russia here, because what's my other option here? Like Eric said, rather this is going to be an RT. So knowing how good a player John is and how good a player everybody else here is, you know, I think there'll be another shift, and I think it could easily be in Austria, or Turkey making a play to work to Austria and leaving it to Karthik.
That kind of play wouldn't surprise me at all. This board, I mean, very, very intelligent, very, very capable players. I do think, though, that Russia and Turkey have been back and forth. And what Riaz is talking about is yet another back and forth. And if Russia and Turkey keep playing this back and forth game, they're going to lose the tempo game to a Germany that's already at 7 centers, already has a crippled England on one of its flanks, and has the potential option. We don't know what direction Greg is going to go. But if Greg chooses to ally with Ed and you have an FG and a crippled England, if Russia and Turkey spend much longer playing ping pong and playing the swapping alliance game, hey, it's cute. Hey, it's fun. It creates for tons of fun commentary. But, you know, this game has 3 aspects that cannot be ignored. There's the tactical aspect, which I excel at, and the diplomatic aspect, which I do not excel at. But there's a third aspect that's important in every strategy-based board game that is about controlling territory, whether it's chess, whether it's Othello, whether it's diplomacy. You've got to worry about your tempo. And if Turkey plays this game and now allies again with Karthik and goes back after Russia another time, he's already losing the tempo game, and he'd only be losing it more. And that's why I think, and I could be wrong, but I think Turkey for the time being is going to stay allied with Russia for the reason of tempo.
But we need to up our tempo game, so let's move on to Austria and Karthik. He was mentioned a couple of times there. Seems to be the man in the middle now. The question over what Italy is doing regarding Greece here, but it was all coming up Karthik, and now a little bit rocky. How, Riaz, how do you react here if you're Karthik?
Well, first of all, I'm waiting for the Lady Razor post-fall 1902 graphic. I haven't seen one yet, so I'm calling you out right now, Lady Razor. You got to bring one up, just as strong as the last one. I think Karthik's a good enough player here that he's gonna know how to come back from this. I mean, this is a 1910 game, right? I mean, we're a 4-center Austria is not the end of the world. There's still lots of play here. And in a game where there's a lot of transactional play and a lot of deal making back and forth, somebody like Karthik, that really suits his game. He's very good at that.
Yeah, he's not someone who gives up easily. He's pretty tenacious and a great diplomat. What are his tactical options then here, Eric?
Well, I want to bet before I talk about his current tactical options, I want to back up one small step. When we did our commentary for last season, I made the comment that sending both of those units north against Munich was a mistake. He needed an army in Budapest. If he had an army in Budapest and just let Russia know, hey, I am cutting Romania just to keep you honest, I think he would have kept Russia on board. He would have kept Russia on board. Ed would have lost Berlin, and Karthik would have kept Bulgaria, and then whether he lost Greece or not would have been wholly dependent on what he had arranged with Italy. The not being in Bulgaria is what allowed the Russia-Turkey to come back into play. I think it's a huge missed opportunity here. And Karthik is a good player for this position to try and salvage it. But make no mistake, Karthik is currently in a position that he has to salvage after a really bad turn. It's a really bad turn. Riaz mentioned a Lady Razor image. I went out and found him an image. I think he put it in the slideshow. Yeah. Karthik, he can't cry over spilt milk here because he didn't have disaster happen to him. He did disaster to himself. He is not crying over spilt milk. This is evaporated milk. And I love this image. And I just want to say I got this image from my son, Danny, currently deployed at Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti. And I really appreciate him following the videos and thinking it was funny and thinking that this was appropriate. I put this in here for him. But the whole concept of evaporated milk, I chuckled over that for a good long time. And I got to admit, I worked real hard to find a way to fit it in. But it is still accurate. That's what Karthik is dealing with here. He is trying to recover from a mistake, and it was a costly mistake. And I think he has the ability to get back on board with Italy, because I think that Italy taking Greece was agreed to as to and between them. So I think that that's most likely, but he's got to get someone on board, and he's got to convince that person that he's getting on board that he's still viable. And because if he doesn't, he's real soon going to be getting talked about, very similar to how we're going to be discussing Jordan here in just a few minutes.
So who, if I'm wrong, you both sort of leaning towards Matt Krill as his best option.
I think his best option is Russia. If he could get Russia back on his side and get Russia to not shove those armies down his throat, that's his best option. However, I think Krill is probably his most likely option. And the reason Krill is a more likely option than Russia is what I was just discussing a couple minutes ago. France and Turkey, they got to fish or cut bait. They got to figure out who their ally is. They got to figure out what their direction is. They got to figure out how to get enough dots that they keep up with Ed. Now, Ed's probably losing a dot this year. I'm not sure he has a pickup in front of him. But Ed is definitely winning the tempo game here, because even if he does lose Edinburgh, and we'll get to that in a few minutes, even if he does lose Edinburgh, he's going to retreat that to Clyde. He's going to retreat that to Norwegian. He's going to have the most advanced piece on the board, and that's going to give him the most options. So for Russia and Turkey, they've got to worry about their tempo. And for that reason, I don't think they can afford to shift their alliances back and forth more and more and more. So I think that if Karthik can pull it, his best option for an ally here is Russia. However, I think his most likely choice for an ally is going to end up being Krill.
How do you feel on that, Riaz? Would you agree?
I would agree. I think Karthik's best option is to make that play on Bulgaria and say, hey, look, you know what happened. We're still in a really good spot here, everybody. Italy, you build a fleet and we'll surround Turkey. And you know what, if somebody needs Bulgaria first, just for peace, then I'm happy to offer it. But I'd really like that piece back so that we can go back to where we were, and I'd still be at 5.
There's another reason for Austria to try and pursue an alliance with Russia right now. Bring up the Spring 03 map.
We don't have Spring 03 yet. It's not happened yet.
Yeah, right there. The Winter 02 map. Yes. You look at that army in Silesia, you look at that army in Warsaw. That army in Silesia, you can assume, is not pointed at Ed. If Russia wanted to point that army in Silesia at Ed, he'd still be in Baltic Sea. He'd also be in Berlin. Okay, so the most likely thing to be done with Army Silesia now is to focus on the south. And Austria is in no position to stop Russia from forcing Galicia. and that's going to create a lot of pressure. The more that Russia can tighten that noose, the more easily positioned he is to convince Italy that he needs to change his alliance structure. And
let's talk more about Russia then. Is Russia's easiest and most straightforward play here to work with Turkey and perhaps Italy as well, and just to take those Austrian dots and grow?
I don't think Italy will help. Honestly, I don't think Italy will help if Turkey is gaining Serbia or Turkey's gaining anything else. I can't see Italy being on board for that. Matt is not the kind of player that's going to sign up for something like that. But one thing that a lot of people forget is, especially for those who maybe don't have the experience on a finals board, is you don't need to solo. You don't need to get to like 15 centers. You just need to be the board topper at the end of the game, or be tied and have that tiebreaker. So really, for somebody like Russia, and I don't know if you agree, Eric, you may agree, is if you've got your Scandinavian spots secured and you've got a big chunk of the Balkans, your chances of winning are massive. Like you're probably going to top that board because there's going to be chaos elsewhere.
Yes, yeah, and I think the moves that he's going to make, I think the moves he's going to make right now reflect that. I think the moves that Russia is going to make right now reflect what you just said. He's going to send Moscow north so that Sweden in the fall is supporting St. Pete to Norway. I also think he's going to tighten the noose. I think Silesia is going to support Warsaw to Galicia. And if you couple Silesia supports Warsaw to Galicia along with Sev to Rum, Rum to Sev, Black Convoy, Sev to Rum, that's a beautiful, beautiful position. I think you're right about Krill. I think Krill isn't going to join an RIT against Austria, but I think Krill could be talked into joining a wintergreen against Austria and Turkey. And the way you would sell the wintergreen right now is, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to get in position. We're going to make sure that Carthage doesn't come back. And as soon as we knock that out, we're going to jerk the rug out from under Turkey. And that is how you get Krill to help an RT against Austria right now, is the promise that Russia is going to help him carve up Turkish dots next. And that's going to be very appealing to Matt, because if that's not what's on his agenda, what's next? What's his next best plan for staying competitive on this map? Good.
He's Italy though. He's at 5. He has a little bit of time. Like this is going to be a game where it's going to be the last 2 to 3 years where everything is going to happen. And speaking from experience, when you're the big guy and everybody's trying to chop you back down in the Nexus finals, it's a lonely spot. Whereas the guy who's got 5 or 6 centers, and last year I think the Greg won with 7. So you're not that far away. I mean, we've never seen a Nexus finals where anybody's had more than 10. And with the quality of play here, anytime anybody gets past 7 or 8, the rest of the board's going to gang up on you, and that's a great place for you to be as Italy. Like that, honestly, that's a fantastic place for Italy. Italy's play is typically a mid-game play, anyways. That's typically where Italy's strength.
Yeah, I mean, in the season we're looking at here. Everyone had just been praising Carthage the turn before, and everyone seems to be jumping on Carthage at first glance. The turn before that, everything was coming up Germany and Ed, and that attracted a lot of attention with these the moves to adjacent to Berlin and Munich from what looked like an AR. So yeah, stuff has been moving away from Italy, but let's have a look at this sort of propping this. What was first an attack against a big guy, and then propping it up and attacking another big guy. Russia had Berlin guaranteed if he wanted it, and he chose, actually, I don't think it's in my best interests. I think I'll do something else. I need to keep Ed propped up. Or if you take the other view, was convinced by Ed to prop him up.
Well, and part of that might be Russia thinking, well, if Austria is building here, he's going to build two armies. So I'm going to have to contend with two more armies in the mid game. Is that what I really, really want? Like, is that what I want? Like, if my goal is to dominate the Balkans, then how am I going to do that if Karthik is continually building, armies here? How am I going to do that? And the other part of that as well. Sorry, Wardy. The other part of that as well is that if there is an AR alliance here, that also forces the West to adapt and change their style, and then you may encourage something that will likely punish Russia before it can punish anybody else.
No, that's dead on. That's dead on. I went through a scenario where Russia took advantage of the diplomatic situation and got very aggressive and stayed in Austria-Russia. And we can look at that slide here in a minute. If he had done that, it's a guarantee he would have created an FG, and that FG would have quickly dispatched England and pivoted and taken up Scandinavia. But this is what Russia could have done, given what he knew. Instead of helping Turkey get Bulgaria back, he could have let Turkey hang. And if he'd done that, Turkey would have deserved it, because Turkey did some very anti-Russian moves through 1901. And if Russia had decided to not trust him, no one could have blamed him. But if he'd have let Austria into Munich, that's a build for Austria. But all that build does is replace that army that's now in Munich and is far, far away from the Balkans. Spencer could have accepted Ed's support into Sweden and walked into Berlin. And if he had walked into Berlin, walked into Sweden, then he'd have gotten two builds. Austria would have gotten two builds. And he'd be having a build in Warsaw and a build in St. Pete. You'd have very stable borders between Austria and Russia. And having a stable border is an anchor that you can build your strategy around and pivot your other pieces. And if Russia could have created a stable border with Austria and made sure that an Austria-Turkey didn't get created, and make sure that Austria-Italy didn't swing up from behind, take all the Turkish dots, and then keep taking Russia after, that stable border could have allowed Russia to dominate in the north. He chose not to do that. Probably because he's a better player than me. Probably because he's a more patient player than me. Probably because he knows that relationships get you farther in this game than tactics, which is something that I'm trying to learn.
Well, one person that's got to be thankful that Russia didn't do that is Ed in Germany, who I was a bit worried for him, but he's got to be really happy when these moves are adjudicated. Yes.
Isn't it funny, like the way that these things work, and we saw it last year as well, is, people say, oh, he waived build and look at what happened in the spring, and now you give him an F and he's got no chance to win and he's done. And then the very next turn, the game flips, and this is part of the fun of these games, and this is why I sort of feel like that this whole play was all created by this whole season was all created by Ed, and I, because of the number of times he's been in these types of high level games, he could have easily made that same argument to Spencer that, what, don't give Karthik builds, because if you want to win, you've got to take the Balkans as Russia. I mean, you're not going to win sharing Germany with Austria. That you're playing into Austria's strengths, and the other part of that is, I've had a really good relationship with Spencer, and he's very capable of different styles of play, but I've always categorized him as an alliance player. And when you're able to get an alliance player to start to play a game where you shift back and forth, that's playing against their strengths. Whereas, Ed is somebody who is very experienced with making these kind of changes. And I can certainly relate to this type of thing where, in season 6 in the finals, where the game was controlled at one point by an England-France alliance, and that played to my strengths. But the mistake we made was overreacting to some conflict. And once we did that, and the game became more, switching alliances back and forth, we saw the end result. I mean, that was not my strength per se, and it was a big mistake. And playing to people's strengths, and getting Ed to have people play against what may be their strength it's a massive win for him. Like, honestly, it's really a massive win for him.
He's a persuasive and personable guy. He seems to be able to get people to do things for him.
He is, and somebody, there's somebody in the corner that we'll get to, I'm sure, pretty soon, who's saying, "Oh wow, everybody's playing transactionally. Wow, who's the best transactional player in press around here? Who won the last season?" This is playing exactly into his strengths, like literally playing into his strengths, and it's really well done.
I agree that I think the current setup in the West favors France a little bit more than Germany. I am not as optimistic about Ed's position as Riaz is. Let me ask you this, Riaz. Okay, did you see this coming? Would you have bet any money whatsoever on, oh yeah, Ed's going to keep Berlin and Munich, he's going to be fine? Did you see that?
Loaded question.
It depends on the odds. if you gave me the Greece odds from the Euros way back when, sure, I'd put $50 on it. But yeah, there's no chance. Like there's no chance. Definitely not. You're right. Like 100% not. And that's why I was really beaming about Ed's play, because it was a complete shock.
But Ed's position still has some challenges to it. All right, he cannot keep Edinburgh. Okay. His choices for retreats on Edinburgh are going to be Norwegian or Clyde. I believe that retreating to Norwegian, the biggest advantage that retreating to Norwegian is going to have is going to allow him to pair up with that second fleet that he built eventually to cooperate in North Sea. Okay. He's going to have He's going to have no shot at Norway. I'm pretty confident that Russia is going to send Moscow north to St. Pete. So his other alternative is retreating to Clyde.
Yep. Plus, Ed has to build that fleet in Berlin. So that's, if the focus is England, that's pretty far away, right? If I'm
Spencer and first off, if I'm Spencer, I tell Ed, you don't need to build a fleet. Don't worry about it. My next build, I'll build a fleet in North Coast and I'll send you the help. I don't want you in the Baltic Sea. Okay. I would have tried diplomatically to prevent that fleet build. Being unable to prevent it diplomatically, I'd sit back and I'd wait. And if Ed tells me he's moving to Kiel, I say, okay, move to Kiel. That's fine. If he asks permission to go into Baltic Sea, I give him permission, then I bounce his ass. I stuff that fleet down his throat. I don't let that fleet out. Because without a second fleet to bring into the game, Germany can have 7 all day long. Without fleets, he's dead in the water. No pun intended.
No, Germany with 7. I always like it better when they have 3 fleets than 2, especially when one of the fleets is far away in Berlin.
Yeah, it's not just, he's only got 2 fleets. He's got 1.5 fleets, because one of those fleets is on the beach and doesn't have any way of getting himself out unless Russia lets him out. That fleet in Berlin right now, until it gets out in the Baltic, it's a mediocre army. It's an army that can't support Munich.
Okay. Is there any chance of reconciliation here between Germany and England? That sounds like a no.
It's gonna depend on Greg.
But what he does. Well, we will talk about Greg. then let's have a chat about Jordan, because he's been in a bit of a rough spot in this game. He didn't take your advice about Norway bouncing North Sea. He was stranded in Sweden, been booted out. He's now got a German fleet in the further forth. Where does he go from here?
Bring up the Winter 02 map. Bring up the Winter 02 map. See, that is Jordan's problem right there. If Jordan didn't have to disband, his position was salvageable. But his disband was a painful disband. He had to decide which front he was going to lose. He had to decide whether he was going to give up London or if he was going to give up Norway. He has absolutely given up Norway. He can try and talk Russia into letting him keep it as a gift. And if Russia grants him that gift, it's going to be temporary at best. I kind of expected him to throw the white flag up to Greg. I expected him to disband London and just kind of hope. He didn't do that. And the fact that he kept London tells me that there is indeed a chance of reconciliation. There's a chance. There is a chance. If I were Jordan right now, I would try and convince Germany that we should trade dots. You need to give me back Edinburgh so I've got a defensible position. And you need to get that fleet over into Norway, which I can facilitate happening, so that your unit is back on a front that you're actually going to be able to maintain. So I agree. That is the opportunity for reconciliation between Jordan and Ed. But I don't think it's going to happen, because I think Jordan only needs 6 keys to talk to Ed for the rest of the game.
See, no prizes for guessing what they might be. Is there any fruit in that at all, Riaz?
I mean, to me, I look at England, and as England, I know that France's best opportunity to win is typically having a crippled or dead England. If I'm France here, I probably don't go after Germany. I probably just say, you know what, I'm just going to go hard after England, because once England's gone, my chances of winning are just so much higher. My chances of topping are just so much higher, especially with Italy being occupied in the east. So Jordan has to know that, and Jordan has to realize that, you know what, let me stay at 3. If I can get to 4 by, say, 1904, 1905, with all the shifts and all this stuff, I have a pretty realistic chance of making my mark in this game and having a really decent shot at coming back. Like, a slow start for England, a 3-center England it's not horrible. Like, it's not great, but it's not the worst thing in the world, right?
Especially as the movement, the more the game goes on, tends to gravitate away from England towards the center of the board.
For sure. I mean, I can refer us to, was it 1902 or 1903 of the last finals? Turkey was at 2, and then Turkey had a legitimate shot 4 or 5 years later to win the game. They didn't take it, but they had that shot. I mean, and England's is I'd say in a better position than that Turkey was.
That was Tunjon, if I recall correctly.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, he had a shot with the Balkans and things, didn't he? So always interesting sort of area. Okay,
Riaz is definitely at least half right about how Jordan has to be looking at the board right now. He may be entirely right, but the half that's in question, yes, Riaz, you're right. Jordan does have to know that Greg's best chance is through his dots. The other half, though, and that's the thing that we can't quantify looking at this map, we'll be able to tell over the orders for the next 2 seasons, is whether or not Jordan cares. Jordan has to care. After all, But you know what? He also cares about all the very strongly worded caution that he said about Greg consistently, and got utterly ignored.
Well, let's talk about Greg. He's sort of been the elephant in the room thus far. It has Greg benefited the most from that turn out of all the goings on, not necessarily near him? Is this 1902 been really good for Greg? Bearing in mind 1901 was awful.
Yes, maybe not positionally quite yet, but diplomatically, definitely. I mean, we have to realize that in 01, he had 3 people attacking him, right? Like he literally had 3 people attacking him. And look, he's at 5 centers. He's got no enemy. And he has this play where, you know, everybody owes him one because they attacked him, right? Like everybody owes him one. And look at all the switches in play. And who do we know? Like I said earlier, like who do we know that is exceptionally good at playing transactionally? And Greg, please don't get on me. I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying that the board play that is here it really fits the way that you play the game, and things seem to be working out really well.
Hey, we don't want any Canadian on Canadian violence here. That was for F1 qualifying this morning.
I don't totally agree with what Riaz just said. Greg has never been attacked by 3 people. Greg.
Oh, Ed was sort of, he went to Ruhr, didn't he?
Okay, yeah, Ed was
anything hostile to Greg. Never has. Never has. I think the biggest advantage here, I think it's a shared advantage. I think the advantage has gone both to Russia and to France. And the real interesting thing about the fact that the advantage has shifted to Russia and to France is that France and Russia are such great natural allies. And seeing how that plays out moving forward is going to be something that I pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah, I partly, I guess it might come down to which way Germany goes once Austria's off his back and England's dead, if that's the way things are going to go. Does he throw everything at Russia, or does he sort of pin down France?
But Wardy, do you think that Germany may have had something to do with that Skagerrak pull? Because if I'm England, I mean, I want revenge on Germany right away, right? I mean, if I want somebody to go down here, it's probably Germany. But do you think though that there might be some German influence on that pull?
I mean, you can bet that Ed was making a case for it, right, and saying, "Oh, we can patch things up." You know, I just needed, I thought I was gonna be pulling. I just needed Edinburgh. You'll have it back, and we can sort things out. But look how France is gonna capitalize with both of us sort of on the ropes. Well, quite how much weight Jordan would have given it is another matter, but
the fact that he pulled Skagerrak and not London makes the possibility of an England-German reconciliation much, much higher. And that may be why Jordan pulled it, because pulling that fleet gave him the most diplomatic flexibility. Because if he had kept Skagerrak and pulled London, he would have no diplomatic flexibility whatsoever. He would have no diplomatic options. He would simply be a French puppet for the rest of the game.
So who has the greatest diplomatic flexibility in the West right now?
France. I would say.
He has no threats. He has no enemies. He can devote all of his units to whatever he wants to do. Germany has threats on his eastern flank. So not all of his units are his to do with as he chooses. Some of them have to run a picket. So France is definitely much more flexible here. As the more flexible player, he has the most diplomatic options.
Okay, I'm conscious of time, so let's finish off this section by just having a word about Matt Krill in Italy. moved his fleets eastwards, took Greece. We've got a debate over what that was about. The fact that he's built fleet Naples suggests that maybe what you were saying is right about it being arranged. Otherwise, why not army Venice if you're going and attacking Austria? He's going after Turkey then, right? Is that how you would see it, Eric?
Let me start off by saying I was very, very critical of Matt after his spring moves. I called his moves horrible. Matt, I owe you an apology, sir. You came out of fall 02 in a very good situation, much better than I thought it was looking at. I thought you were losing the tempo game, and you're not losing the tempo game anymore. Yeah, you've left France wide open, but the flip side of that is France has left you wide open as well. Okay, so France's position now looks much better than it did after the failed attempt at Marseille that didn't accomplish very much. The spring moves that were kind of shuffling pieces around in a circle. Your position here is very, very good. Italy's options right now are a little bit limited by the number one thing he has to do right now is make sure that he doesn't lose Greece. And the fact that he can't afford to lose Greece, that ties up Ionian, that ties up Greece, and it doesn't make the fleet in Naples all that flexible. But that having been said, I think he had to build a fleet. I think a 2-fleet, 3-army Italy here has much less future growth potential than the 3-fleet, 2-army Italy. So I think he did the right thing.
Yeah, it shows that despite that army being annoying in Piedmont, France and Italy have come to an arrangement, haven't they? And they're not. France only has 2 fleets, and Italy is otherwise engaged in the east. They're not going to be fighting anytime soon, are they?
No, they're not going to be fighting anytime soon. I'm not sure I'd call it an arrangement any more than I'd call a husband and wife who sleep in 2 separate bedrooms as having an arrangement. Neither one of them like it. Neither one of them are happy about it. But you're not going to do a damn thing about it, so just smile and pretend that you don't care.
That reminds me, I wonder how Tarsia got on the sofa. Riaz, what do you think about Italy's prospects in the game?
I really like Italy's chances here. I mean, Italy again. They don't, just like France. They don't really have an enemy at this point, right? I mean, other than sitting in Piedmont and doing whatever with Piedmont, they don't have an enemy. I mean, where's the enemy for Italy? If they had moved to Venice or done something along those lines, I mean, you could see that there'd be some conflict with Austria, but Austria can't afford to get engaged. And in this game, again, just like we talked about with Russia, that all you need is to control the Balkans probably to win the game if you have peace in the north. It's the same deal here with Italy. I mean, you get rid of Turkey, you get your chunk of the Balkans, and you have a neutral front with France, and you're good. Like, he's on his way, and Matt is a very experienced tournament player, and he knows this, and he's going to take his time. He's going to grow at the right times. And the one thing that you can assure yourself with Matt Krill is that he's going to make the optimal move at the right time, and I really like his position, and it's not beyond him, and also probably not beyond him in Austria to convince Russia here to go back to an AIR.
One thing that should really give Italy pause here is, why did Carthage retreat Greece to Albania? He could have retreated that fleet off the board and dropped an army in Budapest. Now you've got a fleet in Greece that is surrounded on all possible sides by units that could do him harm. He's only got 2 units there. He's got a unit to stand and a unit to support. There are 4 units now around Greece. He does not control his own fate in Greece. I think that Krill would feel a lot more comfortable right now if that fleet in Albania was an army in Budapest. And I think he has to wonder, as he's conducting his diplomacy, what is that fleet in Albania for? Because it can't be used against Russia at all. Getting it in a position to use against Turkey is going to require a lot of effort. The only thing it's actively really good at is either defense against me or, even worse, offense against me. So why did he keep that unit? And he needs to know the answer to that question in order for him to effectively communicate and have a good alliance with Karthik moving forward. He's got to address, what was your plan for that fleet with Albania? Because, you know, Karthik's only got 4 units. He can't afford to not use everything he's got.
Presumably they did converse during that retreat phase and then the build phase. So Krill would have seen that retreat before he built the fleet.
That might be like the Germany criticism when they don't build a fleet, right? In 01 is, you know what, I better keep that fleet around if I have any chance, because I'm never going to be able to build a fleet again if this is an AI. So, you know, I might as well try to keep it around. Yeah, it may not.
The other alternatives show that you've got a purpose still that could help Russia down the line.
Yeah. Sure.
Right. We're just coming into the last few minutes of the show.
None of those are compelling arguments that'll make Italy smile, though.
Agreed. I couldn't agree anymore. You're right.
Here we have some comments that have been going on in the chat. We have an appearance from each of you as well. We're at it. Ben Kelman, sorry. Wow, what an absolutely necessary diplomatic win by Ed, getting Russia on side. Obviously on Team Riaz side of the argument there. A roller coaster of emotions, says Rody Mordvanov. Absolutely true. Riaz, you say here, I don't care what the final results end up as. Ed Sullivan is my winner after that season. I'm sure he was very happy with that. Yeah, as Eric alluded to earlier, Tarsia says, I think this is a reply to Ben's comment. Does Russia never get any credit for any of these things? Ben also says Italy could have put Army Rome into Greece instead of the fleet. I think there's an argument to be made that that's better for both Italy and Turkey, because where does the Italian fleet Greece go next? But towards Turkey. So maybe the convoy may have been a little it was easier against anti-Austria if that's where he wanted to go, and less aggressive towards Turkey. Not sure. I
gotta disagree with Ben on that. If I'm Turkey, I want that Italian fleet in Greece, not an army, because, you know, you ask, oh, where does that fleet in Greece go next? It doesn't go anywhere. It stays in Greece. Otherwise, you lose the dot.
Fair enough. And my favorite comment here from yourself, Eric, aka Lex Luthor. These people keep making me look stupid and wrong.
In interest of full disclosure, it's not them that makes me look stupid and wrong. It's me that makes me look stupid and wrong, and I do it every day.
Well, last show it was the jacket you were wearing. And this is a chat I was privy to between you and Ed. Fellas, I don't know how I got out of that one. Said he wasn't confident to try the convoy to Edinburgh or wherever else. So I don't know either. Spencer is trying to take credit for it in the Nexus chat. We just saw that message from Tarsia. Give it to him. I'm a big fan right now, so he can say what he wants. Absolutely.
We'll see how big a fan Ed is of Russia if Russia listens to me and bounces his ass out of Baltic.
We were worried for Ed signing this contract in what looks like blood, but actually it's turned out okay. Anyone else want to sign? Clearly it works, says Ewok. And finally, you might remember this Lady Razor artwork about Karthik in the last after the last turn. Was it you, Riaz, at the start of the show was demanding a Lady Razor pick, or was it
yes.
you, Eric? we don't have a Lady Razor one, but we have the next footage from this scene from Max, and there is Karthik having dropped his crystal ball on the floor. That's smashed. Everyone's trying to get him with daggers and, by the looks of it, dog poo. And you know, although his muscles are looking kind of unshapely still, he is at least speaking Austrian, authentic Austrian with his "good day, mate." And there we go, an incorrectly spelled diaper as well. Anything to finish?
Spencer, you need to quit using your son as a stand-in. It's embarrassing. This is obvious. This is obviously your work, sir.
I love the brushstrokes.
Yeah.
Great to be joined by you once again, Eric and Riaz. Thank you very much for coming to join us. I hope you can come join us again before the game is out.
I would love to. I would love to. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Let Riaz go. I know he's got a deadline. Are we going to go over my predictions well or not?
I've got a couple of minutes, but maybe I can sign out for this one, and you guys can take it from here. But
thank you very much for joining us, Riaz.
No problem. One thing I want to say is that this game's been really entertaining, and it's only 1902. So competitors, please don't take the foot off the gas pedal. We want to see more of this. We want to see more. Let's have more fun so that we can all talk about this again real soon.
I care less about tempo than I care about the opportunity to make more smart-ass comments. So
There you go.
please keep it up,
All
guys.
right. Thank you, guys.
Take
Take it easy, Riaz.
Thanks for joining. So, Eric,
Yes.
tell me what you think is going to happen then.
Well, I have to say, I don't feel all that confident in my predictions here, because I always say the board doesn't. People lie, the board never lies. The problem here is the board cannot tell us what's going to happen right now. What's going to happen on this board right now is going to be determined solely by the diplomatic machinations of the players on the board. And this isn't my prediction slide.
I don't have a prediction slide, I'm afraid.
Okay. All right. Well, that's just as good. That's just as well, because if we put my predictions out there, it would, you know, you'd call it a coin toss, but there's no such thing as a 7-sided coin. Okay. All right. So I am fine not making a prediction right now. I think sitting around and waiting and seeing what's going to happen right now is going to be most beneficial. I think predictions in broad strokes are more about the alliance structure than anything. There's only certain moves that I feel entirely certain of. Okay. The only moves on this board that I feel entirely certain of is Ionian has to support Greece. Moscow has to move to St. Petersburg. Jordan has to take Edinburgh from North Sea. Probably also has to send London to North. Highly likely that Greg is probably going to convoy to Wales.
Yeah.
But those are
although North Sea, an open North Sea would be a hell of an invitation.
Well, if he had a fleet to follow in the English Channel right now, that would be great. But he didn't do that. He didn't convoy into Portugal like Keith had recommended. So, yeah. But in broader strokes, I think that Greg is gonna choose right now to stay nominally allied with Germany. I think he's going to set his target on the English dots. I think Russia and Turkey are going to stay allied. And I think Austria and Italy are going to stay allied. I think that's what I see, but it could go any way. Every player on this.
What country most often benefits from an RT versus AI?
Most often? England, but that's not happening here.
Well, you never know. You know, I have faith, Jordan. Come on.
So given this map, you know, they're all being nice, Jordan. I got no faith. You got no hope, brother. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They can talk all day long about miraculous comebacks. You're stuck between Ed and Greg, and you're not going to play either one of these guys for that big a sucker. I think on this map, the country that benefits most if R&T stay allied is going to be France.
Yeah, I really like France here. I don't know how he does it, but then you know, Margaret Thatcher had the answer, right?
But now I covered this in our quick take, and I want to make sure that people who didn't see the quick take get this little bit of feedback. Keith and I both did a full sandbox prediction for fall moves in 1902. And I think it was very clear after you summed everything up. The person who won the bet between me and Keith about predicting moves for fall 1902 was Ed Sullivan.
He wins a quid then, does he? 50p off each year.
That's right. Ed, you got a yen necklace coming your way, brother. So I think as between me and Keith, I think I edged him out a little bit. I think I made better predictions than him a little bit. But the most important thing that happened last season was Ed not losing Berlin or Munich. And the only thing that even remotely approached that was Russia and Turkey getting their act together and getting out of Armenia and getting them back into Bulgaria so that you didn't get rolled by an AI. So, and because I predicted that, I'm calling myself the winner on that. But Ed beat us both by a mile. By a mile.
Well, I'm excited to see what happens next. We don't have long to wait. As we record, we've only got a little over an hour before spring 1903 adjudicates. So I might see you a little bit later, Eric.
Well, we'll talk about that offline, okay? All right.
Thank you very much for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers.